Good morning. Please stay standing and join the Treblemakers in singing the Northwestern Alma Mater.
Hail to Alma Mater, we will sing thy praise forever. All thy sons and daughters bless ye, victory and honor. Alma Mater, praise be thine. May thy name forever shine. Hail to purple, hail to white, hail to thee, Northwestern. Hail to Alma Mater, we will sing thy praise forever. All thy sons and daughters bless thee, victory and honor. Alma Mater, praise be thine. May thy name forever shine. Hail to purple, hail to white, hail to thee, Northwestern.
Thanks so much to the Treblemakers and the Millar Brass Band for performing for us. Please take your seats. On behalf of the Weinberg College of Arts and Sciences at Northwestern University, it is my great pleasure to welcome you to this convocation ceremony. I hope we make it through without rain. We'll go as fast as we can. Graduates, you probably do not remember what I told you during Freshman Welcome Week in September of 2009, but I do. I talked to you about the excitement you would experience exploring our beautiful campus on the shores of Lake Michigan and the lovely town of Evanston and the city of Chicago. But I also talked about the embarrassment you might experience by being late to class or a meeting because of getting lost. I talked about how you would experience the exhilaration of being in a new place and meeting new people, but that you would also probably experience loneliness of having many acquaintances and no close friends. But I told you you would be all right, that you might get lost, but that there would be kind people to help you. And at first you would just have acquaintances, but ultimately you would form friendships, some of which will last you the rest of your lives. And when I talked about getting lost, I didn't just mean not being able to find Norris. I meant all the ways one can feel lost. As Dean of the College of Arts and Sciences, I told you as a freshman it was fine if you did not know what you wanted to major in, or you thought you did, but at the end of fall quarter, you changed your mind. Just out of curiosity, how many of you sitting out here came here knowing exactly what you wanted to major in and ended up in that major? Raise your hand. Okay, some. Okay, how many of you changed your major once? Okay. Okay. How many of you changed your major twice or more? That is fine. That is fine. I urged you to explore, to meet new people, to take courses and topics you've never even heard of. I urged you to engage in student organizations, become involved, and you did all of that and more. Some of you did so much more, I can't even imagine whether you ever had enough time to sleep. And I know this last year, I've talked to members of your class about their concerns about the real world they are entering and what awaits them. But I have faith in you, and our network of Northwestern alumni are there to help you, trust me. You should be proud of yourself, and families, you should be proud of your graduates. You achieved admission to a highly selective university, one of the premier places in the world for learning and discovery, and you have pursued and completed a challenging course of study here. Many of you have worked with our faculty doing research in their labs, in the field, or in libraries and archives around the world. Many of you have worked at organizations throughout Chicagoland. You have been part of our great university and the larger city in which we live. After you leave this hall with your degree in hand, well, actually, it's just a diploma box, but you'll get a diploma eventually, you will cross the line to become a graduate, an alumnus. And as a graduate of this great university, you will join our other illustrious alumni who have become leaders in business and science and law and medicine and education and politics, in the arts and in the entertainment world. Some of you, like many of our other alums, will actually change the world. You are about to embark on many adventures. Some of you probably have your plans all laid out, or think you do, and some of you do not. But neither of you should worry, because in getting to know our alums, I have found that many of the paths they've taken have been very indirect, and you'd never have been able to predict them from their undergraduate majors. But indirect paths are no less interesting and no less successful. For example, I've met people like Carol Siegel. Carol Siegel was an English major. She met her husband Gordon here when they were undergraduates. After their honeymoon in Europe, they were so inspired by the designs and bright colors of housewares in Scandinavia that they came back and started Crate and Barrel. Using the crates and barrels, the merchandise came in to display their wares. Then there's Tim Johnson, also an English major, who is a writer, director, and producer at DreamWorks. His most recent film was How to Train Your Dragon, but he's also directed Ants, Over the Hedge, and many others. Terry O'Neill, a French major who's now the president of NOW, the National Organization of Women. Or Daniel Pink, who we honored this year with a Northwestern Alumni Achievement Award, a class of 1986 linguistics major who went on to Yale Law School and worked as an aide for Secretary of Labor Robert Reich and as the chief speechwriter for Al Gore, and has since gone on to write 5 very successful books about business, work, and management. Of course, there are graduates whose majors led directly to their careers. Some of you may know, or at least have heard of, Veronica Roth, who graduated in 2010 as an English major in our creative writing program, who's already published 2 novels, Divergent in 2011, Insurgent in 2012, and has a third one due out in October titled Allegiant. Veronica sold the movie rights for Divergent, and it's currently being produced right here in Chicago with Kate Winslet as the female lead. But I'm sure even those whose paths look quite direct, like our alum who you'll hear from today, Larry Irving, who graduated from Northwestern as a political science major and then went on to Stanford Law and has had quite a life in politics, I'm sure he will tell you about lots of interesting twists and turns in his life's path along the way. Now, these alums I've mentioned just scratch the surface of the fascinating careers of alumni from Weinberg College of Arts and Sciences, and I've had such great pleasure in my job as dean of meeting them, and I congratulate you for joining the ranks of them today. Now, perhaps the accomplishments of these graduates from many years ago sound daunting or far away or really far from where you are in your life, but I have to tell you, you are every bit as impressive. You've just had fewer years to show us your stuff. Some of you have published poetry and short stories. Some of you have started companies. You've published papers in academic journals. You've gotten patents. You've written blogs. You've started charities. You've worked in soup kitchens. You've gotten Fulbright, Marshall, and National Science Foundation fellowships. You've played on teams. You've sung in a cappella groups like the one you just heard. You've been active in student government. You've served on our Weinberg Student Advisory Board. You performed in WAMU. You've danced in Dance Marathon. You name it, you've done it. To have achieved at the level you have, indeed to have even gotten into Northwestern, I know you are all really smart. I also know you're extremely organized and very hardworking, and I admire you. We all admire you for those characteristics. But my one piece of advice as you go on with your life is please do not always yearn for the next thing and be so busy checking off things on your professional list of things to do or checking your smartphone that you do not enjoy your life. For as one of my favorite poets, Chicago native Gwendolyn Brooks said, exhaust the little moment, soon it dies, and be it gash or gold, it will not come again in this identical disguise. So savor your life, the moments of celebration, the gold like today, and even the sadness or gash. Each year it is with great sadness that we bid our graduates goodbye. but it's also extremely gratifying to see them go on and do wonderful things with their lives. There is no better gift to us than you and what you make of your lives. Indeed, as one of our students wrote in nominating sociology professor Gary Fine for a Mentoring Award this year, said, "He gave me the magical gift of seeing the world around me as a series of questions rather than as answers." Or as one student said about Rebecca Johnson from English in her nomination for a teaching award, "Not a day went by that I didn't feel Professor Johnson was challenging us and opening up with a crowbar the neat, tidy world we thought we knew." Or as a student said of history professor Ken Alder when he received a teaching award 2 years ago, "He changed my outlook on life and gave me hope that at the intersection of hard work and passion, you can find who you really want to be." If we have, as professors, have had that kind of impact on even just a few of you, there is no better reward for us in the world. So we really look forward to hearing about the accomplishments and life events of the members of the class of 2013. Please do keep in touch and let us know where you are and what you are doing. And to the families of these wonderful graduates, know that they could not have done it without you. Not only your financial support, which I know is substantial, but also your emotional support. Congratulations, class of 2013. Thank you. It is now my great pleasure to introduce Morton Schapiro, the 16th president of Northwestern University.
Thank you. Thank you, Sarah. Those are wonderful, very wise words. I'm really honored to be here at Weinberg. We were here yesterday, and we had a whole big thing. It's nice to be back here, and I hope, as Sarah said, the weather holds off. So far, so good call. If it goes south, it was yours, not mine. I want to make that very clear to everybody. I made the call yesterday, and it was dry. Couple of reasons I'm glad to be here with you today. First of all, is I get to do a lot of these. I'm not counting, I am counting, 16. At 18, I got 2 more, and then the summer begins tonight. But usually, I don't get to stay too long. So I started this morning in Welsh Ryan from McCormick School of Engineering and Applied Sciences, and I gave my little talk, my little spiel, and then I heard another speaker and the student speaker. Then I had to leave to go off to Medill. I went over there and to Medill, and we did that one in Connell Auditorium, and the same thing, and then I left to come here. So I don't know how these things end up. I thought you got diplomas. I heard you got boxes. I don't know, but I know you fill them in eventually. But at this one, at least, I can stay in for almost an hour before I head off to the School of Communication. So I really want to see the students actually getting diplomas, even if it's not quite diplomas. So I'm excited about that. That's number one. The second reason I'm glad to be here, of course, and we were talking about it online, if anyone's confused, despite the grandeur of our professional schools at Northwestern, the intellectual heart of any great university is its College of Arts and Sciences, and everyone should know that. So I couldn't miss that. And then finally, I happen to have the great privilege of being a faculty member at Weinberg, and I see a number of friendly and not so friendly students who are students of mine. Sorry about that. And, so I'm a very proud faculty member here. I don't have tenure as a president, but I do have one as a Weinberg faculty member, so thank you for that. So here's my quick comments. I'm not going to be long. There are a lot of great themes one might discuss, and your speaker, I'm sure, will discuss them, that are often the ones expressed at graduation and ceremonies such as these: resilience, lifetime learning, humility, service, and on and on and on, gratitude. I just want to talk just for a couple of minutes, and it's always the theme when I talk to undergrads, and I started it in my previous job, and I continue it today, because it's actually a word that isn't often spoken. It's taken for granted, but not spoken at these kinds of ceremonies, and it's a simple word: friendship. And I know that when you're sort of 22 years old and you hug each other, you think you're going to be surrounded by friends the rest of your lives. And when you hug each other and you say, thank you, I couldn't have gotten through this without you. I couldn't have become the person I am today without you as my dear, devoted, loving friends. You think that they will always be at your side. And sometimes it is the case. But I also preside at reunions, and quite often at the 50th class, the 25th, the 10th, the 5th, whatever it is. And people come up to me all the time, and they say, President Schapiro, this is my friend Jeff, and we were inseparable. We roomed together at Willard, and then in a fraternity, whatever. We got each other through our honors theses, and in fact, he was my best man at the wedding, and and we vowed that we would always be in each other's lives. Or a woman said, this is Susie, and they tell a similar story. And then usually they pause. And I've learned enough in 13 years as president not to say, well, oh, that's a great story. When's the last time you saw Jeff, the last time you saw Susie? And you would be shocked that when you actually ask this question, particularly when you're talking about people in their 40s, 50s, 60s, and beyond, they look down kind of embarrassed, and they say, well, we actually haven't seen each other. We sort of fell out of touch. And if I ask them what happened, there's always a variant of the same line. Life got in the way. And if you ask them, what does it mean life got in the way? You can't even imagine when you hug your friends goodbye that in 20 years you're not even going to know where your friend is and what happened to him or her. But life got in the way means you're spread out all over the world. Life got in the way means that your spouses and partners don't like each other. Life got in the way means that you're so obsessed with your children like your parents were with you. Thank you, parents. That you have no time in your life for anybody else. So here's my simple message. You know that you have to work to keep a great relationship with your parents. You know you have to work to keep a great relationship with your siblings. You know you have to work to keep a great relationship with children, if you're so blessed, and with your partner or spouse. You have to do the same thing for friends. So when you hug each other, mean it. And always remember that the investment you make in maintaining friendship is going to be one of the most valuable investments. I'm an economist, the highest return you'll ever get for any kind of investment that you might make. And you're going to need friends, and this is in conclusion, because over the course of your life, I can guarantee you're going to have some great successes. And as nice as it is to have your family with you, you're going to need your old friends who knew you before you became the successful person you will eventually become. You're going to want to have your friends with you. And also, as you can talk to the people in the stands, life always has its real trials and tribulations. And when things go bad, you're going to need to have your friends with you. And I saw this myself the last 2 years. I lost both my parents, and if it weren't for my wife, and if it weren't for my children, been very important, my rabbi who happens to be in the stands, but also very important, my friends, my old friends from high school and college and grad school. They literally hold me up at the cemetery. I never would have gotten through it. So my wish for you is simple. I wish you health. I wish you happiness. I wish you personal and professional success. But most of all, I wish you the true gift of lifelong friendship. Thank you.
I'd now like to introduce Christina Alexander and Emily DuBois. They are co-presidents of our Weinberg College Student Advisory Board, and they will be introducing our Convocation speaker. And I will really miss them when they graduate. They have been a great duo as co-presidents.
Larry Irving is the president and CEO of the Irving Group and graduated from Northwestern in 1976 with a degree in political science. He formerly served as the principal advisor to the president, vice president, and secretary of commerce on telecommunications and information technology. Due to his dedication to these issues, in 1994, Larry was named one of the 50 most influential persons in the Year of the Internet by Newsweek magazine, which described him as the conscience of the Internet.
Larry is currently working on a new initiative that combines his technology interests with his commitment to social justice. Larry is the co-founder of an organization that works with telecommunications companies, philanthropies, and social entrepreneurs to promote the use of mobile technology to address global problems. Through technologies such as mobile phones and tablets, this organization addresses critical issues including healthcare, hunger, education, and gender inequality.
We welcome Larry Irving as a Weinberg alumnus who serves as a model for us as we begin our postgraduate lives. He is a model not only of professional success, but of engaged citizenship, teaching us how we can use our talents to help our communities flourish.
It is our sincere and distinct honor to introduce to you Larry Irving.
Thank you, Christina and Emily. Very much appreciate that introduction. Good morning. Good morning, President Schapiro, Dean Manglesdorf, Trustees Goldquist and Morton, Associate Deans, distinguished faculty, family, friends, and most importantly, my soon-to-be fellow alumni. So 37 years ago, I was sitting where you were sitting, listening to a convocation speech on my graduation day. And I don't want to be disrespectful, but 37 seconds after that speech was over, I didn't have a clue what the guy had said. 37 years later, I honestly can't even recall the speaker's name. So my bar for success today is pretty low. I just want to be better than that guy. In fairness to that long ago anonymous speaker, I had a lot on my mind. I was looking forward to getting my diploma, not my box, we actually got diplomas in those days. I was about to say goodbye to my girlfriend, who I had met in the previous year, and was trying to figure out if we could sustain a long-distance relationship. And I was thinking about the challenges I'd be facing in law school, and wondering if I was up to them. I was even thinking beyond law school, and contemplating going back to my hometown of Queens, New York, or Brooklyn, where I was born. Brooklyn's in the house, thank you, Brooklyn. Brooklyn is always in the house. And I thought I'd go back to work as a prosecutor or maybe in the public defender's office. Well, as it turned out, I never did go back to Brooklyn or to Queens to live, and I never worked as a criminal lawyer. I did maintain that relationship with the young lady, and 38 years since I first met her, she's now my wife and still my best friend. So there's hope for those of you who are going to go into a long-distance relationship. Most folks who know us attribute our longevity as a couple to my good fortune and her eternal patience. So when Leslie, that's my wife, graduated from McCormick, and I graduated from Stanford Law School in 1979, and for those of you doing the math, yes, she was a freshman and I was a senior when we met. It wasn't like that, well, but don't judge anyway. We moved to Washington, D.C., where I joined a large corporate law firm. And I'll be forever grateful for that law firm experience, but it was there that I learned the first lesson that I want to impart to you today. In your professional life, nothing's forever. I learned a lot at that law firm. I improved my writing skills, which are essential to anything. I paid down some student loans, but I knew that I hadn't found my calling. So for the next two of the 3.5 years I was there, I spent my time knocking on doors all over Washington, left my resume in literally hundreds of places, and then I got lucky. Through a friend, I met a young, dynamic congressman from Texas named Mickey Leland. He was a third-term congressman, and he hired me to be his legislative director. And it was like taking off on a rocket ship. Mickey wasn't just my friend or my boss, he was my mentor. And I can't tell you how much mentors matter. Early in your career, if you can, find a mentor, not just a boss. And let me explain the difference. A boss primarily cares about what you can do to help her drive the success of whatever organization you work for. But a mentor cares about your work, but he or she also cares about developing your skills. They're invested in you and help you develop the skills you need, not just for the job at hand, but for life. Mickey threw me into the deep end of the pool, but he's always there to make sure I didn't drown. At 27 years old, I worked on the creation of a Congressional Committee on Hunger. I worked for a federal holiday honoring Martin Luther King. I had oversight of regulations reforming our national telephone system. I drafted legislation increasing opportunities for women and minority in our electronic media. I worked with Mickey on a presidential campaign, and I went to Cuba on behalf of the United States to negotiate the status of a convict who had hijacked a plane. In those days, the United States didn't have direct relations with Cuba. Mickey knew Fidel Castro through his work on juvenile health, and so the government sent me down to Cuba to negotiate that hostage. Mickey was the first man I ever heard describe himself as a citizen of the world, and he encouraged his staff to think global and to think big. In the 4 years I was with Mickey, I gained more than a decade's worth of experience. But I remembered rule number one, and nothing is forever. 4 years, and I knew I had more to learn, but Mickey knew I had more to learn, and I needed new teachers. So he helped me land a position with my second mentor, Congressman Ed Markey, who I think is about to become Senator Ed Markey, who's took over the subcommittee on telecommunications in the House of Representatives. Talk about luck. I'm a media junkie, and I love politics, and I had responsibility for media policy for the United States of America, at least in Congress. And that brings me to my third message. In developing your career, follow your passion, but direct your passion to something that aligns with your talent. We all know passionate mediocrities, and if you don't know any, just watch reality television any night of the week. I love technology, but I couldn't make much of a contribution writing code. I can do something with regard to writing policy, and that's how I've spent most of my career. I had the opportunity to direct my passion for media towards promoting the development of cable and satellite television technologies, developing guidelines for educational children's television, encouraging new independent voices on public television, and again, promoting opportunities for underserved communities for women and minorities. I had a spectacular 6 years working with the smartest people on the planet on issues I cared about, and it culminated in one of the toughest legislative battles of that period. So if you go back to the first President Bush, President H.W. Bush, he had 42 vetoes, 42-0. Every bill he vetoed was upheld. I was involved in the 43rd, and that was a battle. At issue was cable television, believe it or not, and there was a bill that I was working on to lower consumer rates and to promote more competition. Unfortunately, early on in the process, I almost destroyed the prospects of the bill in committee. Now, I was a committee counsel, and committee counsel is a pretty easy job when a bill comes up to committee. Basically, you have to look at the numbers of members on the committee, divide by 2, and add 1. Now, even a poli-sci major can do that math. If you don't have a majority, you can't move the bill. But I'd miscounted. One of the members I counted as a yes, overnight changed his vote to a no. So we came to committee, we couldn't move the bill. It was painful, it was public, and it was humiliating. We had to pull the bill down. We had to work for months to get that bill back. But again, my mentor, Ed Markey, rather than firing me, showed me how to get the bill through the process. We got the bill through the House, we got the bill through the Senate. When the president vetoed, we overrode the veto successfully. And that's message number 4. When you lose, and you will lose in life, get up off the floor, fight back, and fight back harder. The cable bill became a campaign issue in Bill Clinton's campaign against President Bush. It helped frame the Clinton narrative that the Bush administration didn't understand consumers and didn't understand consumer issues. And my involvement in the veto override gained me lots of political goodwill with the Clinton folks, as you might imagine, and helped gain me a reputation for what passes as competence in Washington. I was an early selection for a position in the Clinton administration, and I was appointed to a position with a portfolio that included media, telecom, and technology, including this then new thing called the internet. My job, working for another incredible mentor, the late Secretary of Commerce Ron Brown, was to proselytize, evangelize, develop a policy framework for, and drive adoption both here and the United States of the internet. It was a great time and a phenomenal job. Now, almost all of you sitting directly in front of me, you can't remember a time when there wasn't an internet. But 20 years ago, when I was confirmed by the Senate, June of 1993, I was confirmed by the Senate for my position. Almost exactly 20 years ago today. When I took my job, there were 2 million people, million with an M, on the entire planet that had access to the internet. As I'm speaking to you today, there are 2.75 billion, billion with a B, across the planet who use the internet. But that growth didn't happen without effort. There were millions of people, probably including a lot of those folks sitting up behind you, who thought this whole internet thing was a fad, you know, kind of like Beanie Babies or the Macarena, 2 other big fads of the 90s. And trying to explain the internet to folks in the early 90s was hard. There were folks who literally thought I was loopy running around, you're gonna love this internet thing, it's gonna be great. And that leads to message number 5. If you believe that you're right, stick to it, fight for what you believe in. You're young. You're gonna be wrong on occasion. People expect you to be wrong on occasion. But when you know in your soul that you're right, fight for it. During my tenure in the Clinton administration, I fought hard to bring attention to the digital divide. As computers and the internet became more commonplace, some people in some communities were being left behind. Some had more access to technology than others. To me, it just made sense that if we as an administration were going to laud this wonderful technology that could do so much good, if we're going to spend time and money promoting beneficial uses of the internet, that we had to ensure that it was deployed and used in communities that really needed the help that this technology could provide. To me, that's the essence of our democracy, and I was insistent that we live up to that promise. Fortunately, President Clinton and Secretary Brown agreed, and bridging the digital divide became an administration and then a global priority. Since leaving government, I've stayed involved with technology, and whether working as a consultant, as a co-founder of a .com startup with Magic Johnson, yes, that Magic Johnson, or when serving as a senior executive with a technology company, I've never lost sight of the transformative power of technology and the need to make sure that every person has access to it. So much of what we think of as commonplace today was unthinkable a decade ago. 1999, when I left government, half the people on this planet had never used a telephone. In 1999, half the people on this planet lived 2 or more hours travel time from the nearest telephone. Today, there are 7 billion phones on the planet. 2.5 billion of those are smartphones that are basically computers that connect to the internet. Over the next 5 years, almost 2.5 to 3 billion more people will get connected to the internet. It took us 20 years to go from 2 million to 2.5 billion. It'll take us 5 years to get to another 2.5 billion. I'm working with a group of people to build an organization, the Mobile Alliance for Global Good. We want to use mobile technology, particularly the mobile internet, to solve the world's most intractable problems: hunger, poverty, education, healthcare, gender inequality, lack of clean water, climate change. As recent events have proven, technology is not an unalloyed good. It's all about how people use it and what we prioritize. But every day I see opportunities to harness the power of mobile technology for good purpose. The best part of what I'm doing, or maybe the part that I just enjoy the most, is working with remarkable young people from all over the planet. Last year in New York City, I met a young Weinberg grad, now in med school. He's working with mobile technology to fight diabetes. I've met young people who are using technology to connect people to jobs in Kenya, to blunt the impact of malaria in Botswana, to help the victims of Hurricane Sandy in Staten Island, to map the devastation of oil spills in the Louisiana Gulf, and to help people find and obtain clean water in India, to reconnect refugee families, to overthrow dictatorships. And there's so much more that we can do. And none of those people are much older than you are. Some are younger, some are a little bit older, but they're young people fighting for what they believe in and using technology to do it. And that brings me to the final message I want to impart to you today. You are never too young to make a difference. Let me paraphrase those great philosophers and classic hip-hop artists, Eric B. and Rakim. For those who don't know them, go to YouTube, you'll love them. They once said, "I know you got soul. If you didn't, you wouldn't be in here." Well, in case of you sitting in front of me graduating today, I know you got talent. If you didn't, you wouldn't be sitting there. And in a few minutes, you'll be both talented and credentialed. It's up to you how you're going to use your talent and your new credentials. I implore you to use them for something bigger than yourself. Ask yourself how you can make a difference in your church, or your temple, or your mosque, or your community, or your state, or your nation, or this great planet. What's your passion? What's your talent? How can you align them to drive change? I'm going to make you one guarantee. The next 5 years will be the most creative 5-year period in global history. The innovations we saw over the last 20 years of the internet will be dwarfed by the changes we're going to see, and not just in information technology over the next 5 years. When you connect every person on the planet so that we can talk to each other and share information instantaneously, you can't help but see amazing growth and creativity. Don't sit on the sidelines during this time of change. At times like these, we're facing such seemingly intractable problems as a nation, as a planet, but have so many unprecedented tools to attack those problems. Your potential to change the world, or to at least some small portion of it, is almost limitless. I've loved the experiences I've had over the last 37 years, but I envy you for what you're likely to do over the next 37, and I'll make you a deal. How about we meet right here, 37 years from now, you tell me about your life's adventures, and I'll see if any of you remember anything I said today. Hail to purple, hail to white, hail to Weinberg, class of 2013.
Thanks so much, Larry. Those were wonderful remarks.